Jess, I would love to hear about you and what you do, your background.
Great. Yeah, well, I oversee our learning team at Wex in the benefits division. Our company, at least the division that I'm in, we look at health savings accounts, flex spending accounts, COBRA insurance. We help with the regulation of all of those types of benefits. And our team does all the onboarding and upskilling for all of our new employees into the division. And we also do client and customer education.
Wow, huge responsibility.
Yeah.
So it's any thoughts on the future on onboarding and upskilling in a remote world?
Yeah, so that is something that definitely all of us have been looking at more. I would say within the last year when all of us went remote. We actually had a plan to do our onboarding and upskilling all entirely virtually prior to COVID. And we had a 2-year plan, and we were about 6 months in, and then COVID hit and everyone went to work from home. So we wanted to do it because it allows us to source talent from all across the company, as opposed to limited to a couple of local areas where we have the brick and mortar locations. In terms of the future of it, I know we can do it better. I know we can do it better through different technologies and automation. I know we can, even on our side, some of the things we need to work on are like, how do we get IT to people? How do we get them their computers and their equipment and just that logistical side of it? So we need to nail that down, and maybe that looks different in the future. That's where my brain is headed. I also think we need to get more about allowing employees to have access to exactly what they need in the workflow.
I see.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So do you think there's an aspect of personalization here and making it serving the right content at the right time in each learner?
That's very important, I think. Getting them the right content at the right time. I would say starting it out simple enough that it's easy to grasp, and then building on that so that it's not too much at once. We don't like fire hose learning if we can help it.
Yep. Yeah. It's a good phrase. And what about the more social and informal aspects of onboarding, starting a new job and understanding the culture of an organization and how to get things done? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you bring that up, because I think here at ATD, one of the things I've noticed the most, just through conversations with a number of different leaders, is that connection. People are just craving that personal connection in some way, shape, or form. So how do we create that even when people are onboarding virtually? I think it's really important. How do we have the social connections? How do we have the collaborative space in an onboarding environment when we're all sitting in our own spots and our own houses? And people are, I think, hungry for that after this last year.
What's some advice you would give people who are looking to do that really effectively in their organizations? To give people that context.
I think you have to be extremely intentional with it. So one of the things, we just onboarded a new manager to our team actually within the last couple of months. And so he onboarded entirely virtually, and onboarding a manager is even different than an employee because they have a team then that they need to get to know too remotely. We did a couple of different things. We were very intentional. One thing that we did was we created called Working With Me documents. And so everybody created a just very off the cuff, here's who I am, here's what you should know about working with me. Everything from, hey, I go to bed early, so you'll never get a late night email from me, but you might get one at 5 a.m, don't be alarmed. To on the side, I like to ride my Peloton and wear crazy socks. And here's a couple pictures of the people that I live with in my house or whatever, something like that. So a little bit just all about us. We sent that out to the manager then before he even started, so he could get to know the team and each other, and it was so fun. And then we very intentionally did a team get to know you blitz. So for the first 2 weeks, for a half hour every day we got together, and somebody different on the team led some type of a get to know you activity. All virtual, of course. And so everybody got a chance to take some ownership of that and then get to know each other. And I would say that worked very effectively, and then just getting one-on-ones started as soon as possible. I think sometimes if we were back in the office, we could wait a little longer because you and I would run into each other. We might not need to sit down formally. But being in this virtual space, I think the more immediate we can make those connections, the better. And intentionally because we miss that water cooler talk now, right? We miss that I'm swinging past your office. So
Exactly.
we have to almost put the time on the schedule, even if it's for 15 minutes instead. It's a different way of looking at it.
You have to get those strategic mechanisms in place and be really intentional about it.
Extremely intentional. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So do you think this is the future of work, hybrid at scale, like remote and hybrid at scale? And do you think this is just the beginning? Are we going to continue along this arc?
This is a very interesting question, isn't it? It's just interesting to consider and think about. I think from my vantage point, it could be. I don't think it will look exactly as it has now. What I would really like to see is if we can get better at maximizing each of the different ways of working. So if you're working remotely, how do you do that really well? But then maybe there's times we need to come together. Let's come together intentionally in the same room, in the same space, and let's do things that we couldn't do online.
Yes,
so let's make sure that if we're picking a way to work, that we're maximizing that way to work. Because I don't think that
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think our connection can go away entirely face to face, but let's also not waste that time then when we have it together.
Right. Angela Duckworth this morning spoke a little bit about certain kinds of work that have to happen inside the mind in a solitary situation, and how that is better for certain kinds of growth, certain kinds of learning. And so being really intentional about synchronous and asynchronous learning, and then combining them together into polysynchronous modalities, I think is something interesting we could be doing for the future.
Yeah, both for learning and then just for working too, the way that we work together or apart.
Exactly. But it's a really exciting time that we're living in. You spoke earlier about being able to recruit from all over the country and sourcing really diverse talent. In some ways, remote work has paved the way for greater access to the workplace.
I would agree.
Any thoughts about inclusion and belonging in this time, and the opportunity, the tremendous opportunity, and then also what we have to be careful about on the flip side?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're at this really interesting point because people's awareness of belonging and inclusion are heightened, I would say. Diversity, belonging, inclusion, all those things. But I wish it wasn't that way. I wish it had been that way all along. Like, it's kind of sad in some ways that we're just coming to this now. But if we're coming to it now, then let's take advantage of it.
Right.
So I hope it doesn't go away. But again, I'll use those same two words of intentionality and connection, because that's what it just keeps coming back to for me, is we have to be intentional about how we engage with others. And then we just need to be able to make connections with people. And I think we can do that virtually, no matter who the person is. But we have to, again, it has to be intentional. Like, how do we take the unintentional and make it intentional almost?
Right. What role do you think metacognition or self-awareness and reflecting on yourself and your emotions and things like that has in all of this? Do you think it starts there?
I absolutely think it starts there. Yeah, just having that awareness of who we are and how we're thinking and what we're thinking, and even emotions, and being aware of what those emotions are and how they're coming out.
Yes, how they're being perceived.
Right. I sometimes wish I could sit in your seat and see who I am. You could sit in my seat and see who you are, and we could know more about what each other are like by looking from the outside, but we don't get that view of ourselves, so we have to work a little harder.
Well, there are technologies that help with that.
Yeah, that is true. Very true. Very true. Very true.
Yeah, there's VR where you can go around and experience life from another person's perspective. There are also technologies around, a lot of technologies around metacognition and emotional granularity, being able to identify very precisely what emotion you are feeling.
I like that. I haven't heard that term before, emotional granularity. Is that what you called it?
Yep, it's
from
Microsoft, but the idea is all over the place.
Yeah, that could be very helpful. I could see that being very helpful. Because even just to build that awareness of I'm having an emotion and is sometimes more difficult depending. Yeah.
So along with that, there's been such a groundswell of interest in social emotional learning and well-being at work. Do you see this continuing this trend?
I certainly hope it will. I do think that as more companies can hire all around the country, because we move to more and more virtual digital tools, that the war for talent is only going to increase. And then hopefully our talent will be able to drive what they need out of the workplace. And I do think that emotional well-being is something that we all need. And so hopefully we can continue to drive that as well. But I don't know that I see it going away, maybe even increasing.
I think this is just the beginning.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I love the way you phrased it as the talent driving what they need.
Yeah.
You're right. Being able to articulate what it is that you need is in many steps in many ways the first step.
That's part of the social awareness too.
Yes. We're coming to a lot of revelations here.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. And last question. There is incredible energy at ATD this year, with all the programming and a really energetic expo floor. We've all made a huge commitment to be here. What are some of the most exciting trends that you're seeing? What's surprising?
Oh gosh, anything and everything digital. And how do we capture that? And I think more people are interested in that now than ever have been before. So that's one exciting trend. But paired with connection, as we've both been talking about, for me, that's just a theme that keeps popping up over and over again, is how do we help people intentionally connect through technology even.
Yes.
And so how do we do that? So that's something I think there's a lot of energy around, that there's been a lot of buzz about that. At least in the circles I've been in, that's what I've been hearing.
Yep. Combating that Zoom fatigue.
Oh goodness. That is not the first time I've heard that phrase today.